Hey guys, Desolate Magic here, and it looks like Wizards is actually sticking with this very interesting spoiler schedule, which is to basically show off the mechanics up front with the least amount of actual cards, and then show off the rest of the cards later. So today's spoiler is the Simic mechanic, which is Adapt. So let's look at the more simplistic version first. We've got Aeromunculus, which that's a creepy looking fellow right there. It's a homunculus mutant, naturally, and it's a 2/3 for 3 with flying, and if you pay 4, you can adapt 1. If this creature has no +1/+1 counters on it, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So I assume you could activate adapt if you wanted. If it already had one or more counters, you just wouldn't get the counters, so it would do absolutely nothing, except for like another card that says every time a creature adapts. We may or may not see that, but basically what this is Monstrosity. So let's throw up my favorite Theros version of it. Monstrosity was all over the Theros block, and there are other mechanics that work just like this as well. But this was a 3/5 for 4 Vigilance, and you can pay 6, and then it has Monstrosity 3. If this creature isn't monstrous, and that is important, put 3 1/1 counters on it, and it becomes monstrous. And then as long as 100-handed one is monstrous, it has reach and can block an additional 99 creatures each combat. I love this card. It is so stupid. So the whole point with get bigger later effects on creatures is that they're, castable and not completely out of the question early game. So it's not like they're just a 6-cost 6/6 trampler or something, where absolute boat anchor in your opening hand. So yeah, you could get this guy out for 4 pretty reasonably, kind of early to mid game. But creatures you get out early generally aren't that great late game. That's not always true, but you kind of want something to do. You don't want to just sit there and top deck and hope you pull something that wins the game or improves your board state or something. That's kind of boring. So late game, you get 6 mana, you dump it into this guy, boom, Monstrosity 3, he becomes a 6/8, hello. And you had to pay 6 and 4, so you technically have 10 mana into him, but it's split between turns and you probably had nothing better to do. So hey, it's a trade-off, but then you get a giant creature, so it's like getting a giant creature without having to draw a giant creature, without having to get stuck with a giant creature earlier in the game, or having to get like a +3/+3 aura card and draw it in order, like draw the creature first, get it out, and then draw the aura. So it helps your deck work. Any kind of effect that's like, hey, make this creature bigger later, or do some big thing with it later, that's huge. Very important to like a smooth, actually working deck, like mathematically sound deck. So here's how Aeromunculus is different. One, it's only Adapt 1, but I think they had Monstrous 1 or Monstrous 2, and not all of it was like Monstrous 6. But you pay 4, and you could technically do this multiple times, except you kind of couldn't. So it just states, Adapt 1, if this creature has no 1/1 counters on it, put 1 on it. If for some reason later in the game it lost its counter or had it removed on purpose by one of your other abilities, I can virtually guarantee that will be a thing. Then you can adapt again because now it has no 1/1 counters on it. So I don't think anybody would be placing -1/-1 counters on it, thankfully. That was a fun mechanic though. I highly suspect that there will be a dirt cheap enchantment, probably a rare mythic, that's on color with Simic, and it'll say during your upkeep or every main phase or once per turn, end step, whatever, you can take maybe 1/1 counter and move it from one creature to another. Now, even if we did not get something like that, this is not the best example of an adapt creature, so let's jump over to Zagana, unfortunately a merfolk, because, well, merfolk show up to every single plane and just piss everybody off and ruin the entire plane. So she has Adapt 4. That's more typical for a Monstrosity style effect. So she's a 4/4 for 4, legendary merfolk, great. When she enters the battlefield, if you control another creature with a +1 counter on a draw card, yay. But then later you can pay 6 and then Adapt 4. So if it has no 1/1 counters, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not any amount, then you can Adapt 4, drop 4 counters onto it, and ta-da, that's it. So that would make it an 8/8. Also, each creature you control, inclusive of Zagana herself, with a 1/1 counter on it has trample. So she automatically turns herself into an 8/8 trampler. That's pretty crazy. She's a little slow for merfolk, but I think in a heavy counter dump merfolk, instead of like a hexproof or tap down or bounce back to hand heavy merfolk, this would be the card to play. So it's just your simple late game option where you're like, okay, turn this into a huge threat without having to just cross my fingers and hope I pull the right card combination. Self-contained automatic late game option if this lives long enough. Absolutely fantastic. So I think Simic's thing is going to be all about counters, which hopefully will get rid of all this early game red shock lightning bolt BS. There's still fight with fire, there's still lava coil, but if you can get stuff reliably bigger than that, where red just isn't an option, it can't reliably shut down really any creatures in a Simic deck, hopefully people will stop playing it. I am so sick of Red Rush. I've been sick of Red Rush since I'm on Cat. They've already banned it once, they should have banned it twice, and honestly, anything Red Rush and anything Burn, I've always hated it. Automatically just boring, stupid, non-interactive crap that doesn't give you enough time to play your deck. I hate it. I hate turn 4, turn 5 fast magic and standard. Everybody hates it. Just screw red. That's why I'm really hoping that Simic suppresses the color red entirely. That would be absolutely fantastic. So believe it or not, these two cards are the spoiler for the day. Like I said, if you take Zagana and you move the counters off of her, you could adapt again. So let's say you move them to some other random creature with some sort of effect. Cool, now you get to dump 4 more counters on. It's like bringing out another 4/4 creature, just it's all together in one piece. I think we're going to see something like that, but like I said earlier, if we don't, she turns herself into an 8/8 trampler. Like, that's all you need. You don't need to do it again. It would be nice. It'd be a cool trick, but, you know, monstrosity was monstrosity. And honestly, the best part about this is just you don't have to pay it at cast time. It's not like Overload, where it's like, well, you can cast a spell, or you can overload it for this alternate cost or whatever, and it does more. Like, you don't have to decide right then. You can just throw her down for 4 and be like, yeah, hopefully I'll get to 6 at some point, and a couple turns later, you're like, oh, I am at 6, cool. Yeah, cool, nice option, let's do it. So it's like a backup plan where you don't have to rely on it. It's not like a combo that has to go off. It's just a nice option late game. So a nice, subtle, not like in your face, explosive, crazy keyword mechanic like Annihilator. It's not unblockable, flying, hexproof, none of these more obnoxious, very disruptive, very powerful things. It's just like, oh, that's a nice little thing they added to the card, and I like real subtle stuff like that, because honestly, there's nothing subtle about an 8/8 Trampler. It's not that subtle, I don't want to downplay it. So I can't wait to see how these mechanics that we know from the 3 out of 5 guilds so far, how they work in the actual set. I mean, it's clear as day how they would work with the cards that are already legal, but I can't wait to see what they give to support it, especially in like a draft environment. That will be really interesting, so hit that subscribe button if you want to see the rest of my spoiler videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys very shortly.